Okay, excellent. This meeting of the Coventry Town Council will now come to order at 6:01.
This meeting is being recorded.
Roll call. Ms. Ludwig?
Here.
Mr. Shockley?
Here.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Here.
Mrs. Lima?
Here.
Mrs. Dickson here. May I have a motion to adjourn into executive session for the following: close pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A1 on discussions of job performance, character, physical, or mental health of a person or persons, specifically for the council to interview candidates for the following boards: Coventry Parks and Recreation Commission and Juvenile Hearing Board. I do have an announcement to make, and that is the candidate for Coventry Parks and Recreation Commission has withdrawn her application. So we will just be interviewing 2 candidates for the Juvenile Hearing Board this evening. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call. Ms. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Shockley?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mrs. Lima?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon. 5 yeas, no nays, the motion passes. Members of the public, we will resume at 6:30 p.m. in public session. Council, please access the Zoom link for the executive session. We are now in public session back at 6:32. May I have a motion to adjourn from the executive session?
Make a motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Ms. Ludwig,
Yes.
Mr. Shockley,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc.
Yes, but I do want to mention, I don't think Hillary made it back yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, you're right. We'll wait for her to come back. I wonder if she has the connection.
Oh, that's right. Cody needed to let her in.
I don't see her in the attendees
I
list.
don't see her in either, though.
There is someone raising their hands.
Yes, there she
I
is.
don't know if that's her.
I
She's
see
in now.
her.
She's in.
Now she's going, oh, hello, Hillary. We're doing roll call
I think we're actually voting on,
to adjourn
Leaving
from the,
executive
to
session.
adjourn from the executive session. Okay, Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
you said yes. Mrs. Lima,
yes.
Mrs. Dickson, yes. 5 yeas, no nays. The motion passes. May I have a motion to seal the minutes from the executive session?
So
I'll make a
moved.
motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, thank you. Roll call vote. Ms. Ludwig,
Yes.
Mrs. Shockley,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mrs. Lima,
Yes.
Mrs. Dickson, yes. 5 yeas, no nays. The motion passes. Members of the public, the council met in executive session to consider the following. Closed pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A1 on discussions of job performance, character, physical, or mental health of a person or persons, specifically for the council to interview candidates for the following boards. Coventry Parks and Recreation Commission. We did not interview a candidate because the candidate withdrew her application. We did interview 2 candidates for the Juvenile Hearing Board. No votes were taken. An appointment will be made to the Juvenile Hearing Board in February. Agenda C1, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. LeBlanc, please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, approval of Town Council minutes, November 13, 2021 and December 13, 2021. Madam Clerk, did you receive any corrections?
Yes, for December 13th.
Have you made the corrections?
Yes.
Thank you. May I have a motion to?
Madam President,
Yes,
I just had one edit. I wasn't able to get in time to the clerk, if I may.
certainly.
This is on page 17 of our packet, line 224. The word stake should be state.
Yeah,
Okay, yes, that one has been corrected. That was in
Oh,
President.
Great. Thank you. That's all.
thank you. All right,
President
may I have a
Dickson,
yes.
We just
Okay.
confirm, I think we voted on this to seal the minutes from the executive session. Did we vote on that?
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
we did do that, okay? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the minutes for November 13th and the amended minutes for December 13, 2021? May I have a motion?
There's,
I'll make a
I'm
motion.
I'm sorry,
There's
Mrs.
the-
Ambutrano?
I'm sorry, the minutes were not included in the November 13th ones. We're gonna table those. You should have just received December 13th.
Oh, you're correct. I was noticing that the dates on the bottom. I was just reading so many lines. That was 1 minute meeting. Oh my God. Okay, thank you. All
Yeah.
right. May I have a motion to approve the amended minutes for December 13th?
Make a motion.
Thank you. May I have a
I'll second the
second?
motion.
Thank you. Roll call vote, Mrs. Shockley,
Yes.
Mrs. Lima,
Yes.
Ms. Ludwig,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc.
I'm going to abstain because I was not present.
Thank you. Mrs. Dickson, yes. Okay, we have 4 yeas, 1 abstention. The motion passes. Thank you. Agenda D, licenses and discussion and/or action, renewal of firearm licenses for the following: Midstate Gun, Hawkins Machine, Rhode Island Gun Works, and Shadow LLC. Reference pages 13 to 17. May I have a
President Dixon?
motion? Yes.
I just need to recuse myself from Midstate Gun Company. I did provide Joanne with a copy of the form.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. So we will do Midstate vote first, and then we will do the other 3 grouped together. May I have a motion to approve the license for Midstate Gun? Mr. Marchant, first of all, motion for Midstate Gun. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Marchant, any comments or concerns about this license renewal?
No, all the checks came back clean.
Okay, council members, do you have any questions? Mrs. Shockley?
Hey, I was just wondering, Mr. Marchant, what do we check on?
The police perform a records check and the zoning officer verifies zoning compliance.
So the records check is that there have been no complaints or instances?
No criminal history, no violations of state law.
And only because of getting bitten before on some other things. Have there been complaints or any neighboring issues? No one brought up any
None were reported.
reason to not? Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns by members of the council? Okay, we'll take a vote for approval of the renewal of the license for Midstate. Mrs. Shockley,
Yes.
Mrs. Lima,
Yes.
Mrs. Ludwig,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc is abstaining. Mrs. Dickson, yes. 4 yeas, 1 abstention. The motion passes to renew the fire license for Midstate. Next, we'll take a motion to approve the license, renewal of the firearm licenses for Hawkins Machine, Rhode Island Gun Works, and Shadow LLC. May I have a motion?
Make
I make the motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second
second.
it.
Thank you. Mr. Marchant, any questions or concerns about these 3 renewals?
No, and no complaints either.
Excellent. Any other questions by members of the council? Okay. Roll call vote. Mrs. Shockley,
Yes.
Mrs. Lima,
Yes.
Ms. Ludwig,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon, yes. Okay, 5 yeas, no nays, the motion passes. Thank you. Agenda E, resolution for discussion and/or action. F1, appointment of James Humphrey to the Charter Review Commission. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments the council would like to make?
Does he make the 9th member?
Yes.
Is there anything we need to do in order to change it from an ad hoc to a commission?
This appointment will fulfill the full slate of the commission, and so it'll be a commission going forward.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes,
just again, I think I've requested this a couple of times, but if moving forward, we can actually put the names of people we're planning to appoint in the agenda, that would be really helpful. And just so it's on the record as well.
as Ms. Amatrano mentioned, we can do that if maybe there's 1 candidate being appointed, but if we're interviewing 3 or 4 people in an evening and then plan to appoint that particular evening, it would be difficult for us to name a person on the agenda for the same
Yeah,
night
that makes sense, then I recommend we don't interview and appoint in the same night. But yeah, it just be my preference, but it's up to the rest of the council as well. Just want to put that out there. Thanks.
Thank you. I think Mrs. Shockley raised that issue and we discussed it a little earlier, and we agreed that that would be a preferable route to go. So when possible, we will do that. And Ms. Amatrano, just please note of that. Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second to appoint James Humphrey to the Charter Review Commission. Roll call vote. Mr. Shockley,
Yes.
Mrs. Lima,
Yes.
Ms. Ludwig,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mrs. Dickson. 5 yeas, no nays, the motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Humphrey. You make the 9th person on the Charter Review Commission. We have a full membership and we're absolutely delighted. Only took us about 3 months, but when you have quality, everything is A1. Thank you. F3, tax assessors, additions and abatements. Ms. Martini, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry you
Okay,
can't see me.
First of all, may I have a motion to approve the report? Then we'll go to the discussion. May I have a motion to approve the report?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion. Ms. Martini, please tell us any things that we should note about the report.
We have abatements in the amount of $12,091.94. And we have additions in the amount of $13,697.29. Did you have any questions?
Okay, members of the council, any questions or concerns about this report? I don't see any hands raised. All right, roll call vote. Mrs. Shockley,
Yes.
Mrs. Lima,
Yes.
Ms. Ludwig,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mrs. Dickson. Yes, 5 yeas, no nays. The motion passes to approve the report. Thank you, Ms. Martini. This is, I think, the shortest amount of time you were with us. Many a moon. And we also put you at the beginning of the agenda. So have a wonderful evening.
We have one more thing for me, but I really appreciate that. And you're moving right along.
We are trying, but yes, we do have one more thing from you.
Yes.
We will do quickly. Agenda E4, resolution affirming the award of a 2022 statistical update and reevaluation program within the town of Coventry. The reference page is 41. May I have a motion to affirm the award?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion. Mr. Marchant, would you like to speak to this award, please?
A little bit. Northeast Revaluation Group is the same group that has provided the services for the town in the past. They're local, and they were the best, most responsive to the RFP. Ms. Martini can add any clarification that she would like to.
Ms. Martini, we would be delighted to hear any comments from you.
Okay. Northeast Reval has done Coventry's revaluations for several cycles. I'm familiar with the company. They are local. They were the low bid. And at this point, I would like to stay with them. I have a good working relationship with them. I think they do a fine job. And that was my recommendation as well, as to stay with them for this cycle anyway.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the council? Mr. LeBlanc?
Mrs. Martini, do you happen to know how many towns and cities in Rhode Island that Northeast Reval does by chance?
Let me see. I have a listing. It was required for their RFP. If I can get to the right page. Okay, so let's see. So in 2021, they did Statistical in Bristol, a full revaluation in Burrillville, a full revaluation in Central Falls, a statistical revaluation in East Providence, the full revaluation for Jamestown, the full revaluation for North Smithfield, a statistical for the city of Providence, the statistical for the town of Situate, and a full revaluation for the town of West Warwick. 2022, and this is another reason too, 2022 is our year that will be revaled, and they only have 3 projects going on this year too. So that makes me feel good as well.
I appreciate that. And my only other question, I see on the memo that we had received, it's 174 for with cloud-based, and then it's 170, let's just call it 170 without. Exactly, I mean, cloud-based, just saving the information in the cloud rather than on our own server. Is that all it is?
That's all it is, yeah.
And you don't, I think the resolution is selecting without cloud. So I'm assuming that's our preference is to leave it in-house.
At this time, I believe that was a little bit over my head, but yes.
Okay, appreciate
IT
it.
and finance, yeah.
That works. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there questions from other questions from members of the council? Mrs. Shockley?
Yes, I just want to make sure I fully understand. So I understand that it's 170,000 total. I guess the way this chart is written out, I'm having a little trouble understanding what the town residents are paying for. It seems we pay for 58,000 of it out of next year's budget and 10,000 of it out of this year's budget.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is state funded.
Yes. Yes. 60% we get back from the state. We have to do that in increments.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood exactly how this table.
Yeah. Lisa might be able to help more with that as well.
Ms. Mills?
Yes, I just wanted to add to that. So we added that chart so you could see how it's presented for budgetary purposes for 2023. We're bringing in the full 102 because the state's going to reimburse us. So that's called state. That'll be on the revenue side of the budget. But we will pay 160,000 next year, and then the state reimburses us in pieces. And usually it's like about 10 different increments throughout the year.
So the state's actually reimbursing us for 160,000. It's just how they're doing it.
They're reimbursing us for the 102,261.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a 60% reimbursement from the state of Rhode Island, but they'll be reimbursing us in pieces. Basically, they're almost the same format of how we expend it. So we're not going to pay 100% to Northeast Reval at one time. It's going to be progressive, progression billing. So when we get billed, we submit it to the state and they reimburse us the 60%.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, before we vote, I want to read at least portion of the resolution into the record so that members of the public will know what we're voting on. This is resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Coventry awarding a contract for property valuation services to Northeast Evaluation Group, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $170,435. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council hereby affirms the award contract to be executed by the town manager in accordance with Chapter 56-10 of the Town of Coventry Code of Ordinances for the purchase of the following: the development and implementation of a statistical update and reevaluation program within the Town of Coventry. And this is to Northeast Reevaluation Group, LLC, 205 Haleen Road, Unit 213, Warwick, Rhode Island, 02886. Are we ready for the vote? Okay. Mrs. Shockley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lima?
Yes.
Ms. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mrs. Dickson, yes. 5 yeas, no nays. The motion passes to affirm the award of the statistical update and reevaluation program. Thank you. Agenda F, Town Council, School Committee Monthly Report. Mrs. Patno, welcome. Thank you. And I want to thank the council for allowing us the opportunity to present a monthly school committee report to the council and to the citizens of Coventry and to anyone on the call who's listening. So the first, congratulations to Coventry High School senior Nick Campanello. Nick was selected as a first-team All-State linebacker for the second consecutive season. Nick registered 142 tackles this season. This is the third highest amount of tackles ever recorded in Rhode Island since the league started tracking statistics. The Coventry School Committee will recognize Nick for his accomplishment at a future school committee meeting. Congratulations to the two Coventry High School Cyber Patriot teams. Team 1 and Team 2 took first and second place finish respectively in the Rhode Island Gold Tier competition. Both teams move on to the national semifinals. Cyber Patriot is the National Youth Cyber Defense Competition. Thank you to Mr. Kyle Cattell, the Regional and Career Technical Education Center's computer science instructor, for his leadership and mentorship. Coventry Public Schools Administration participated in a cyber resiliency review from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency on Friday, January 21st, facilitated by Colonel Mike Tatro. The Coventry team went through a series of questions covering 10 domains that assess the district's cyber resiliency in the areas of personnel, information technology, and facilities. The team spent 6 hours identifying areas of strengths and areas that need improvement. A report will be generated from the assessment that will assist the Coventry Public Schools leadership in developing an action plan to protect Coventry Public Schools infrastructure from any potential disruption of essential services to our school community. The review is free of charge and available to all municipalities and school departments. Thank you to the Coventry High School wrestling coach, head coach, Mr. Charles Gaffney, for organizing a celebration in honor of former Ochre wrestling champion and wrestling coach Rob Smith, whose life was tragically cut short earlier this year. Prior to the first home wrestling match against North Providence High School, Wednesday, December 20th, several former wrestlers, coaches, and family members spoke on behalf of Rob Smith. A new wrestling mat, due to the generosity of Electric Boat's employees, scholarship program was dedicated in Mr. Smith's honor. Thank you to the several hundred of individuals who attended this wonderful event. The Ochre wrestlers went on to win the match. Coventry welcomed 2 new administrators to our school community on January 3rd. The first, Mrs. Cheryl Marola, as principal of the Tioga Elementary School. Mrs. Marola served the Providence Public Schools as an educator and principal for well over 24 years. She was recently the principal of the Young Woods Elementary School in Providence. We had an excellent pool of candidates for this position. We are so proud that Mrs. Marola chose to take over the leadership of Tioga Elementary School. The second, Mr. Russell Hill, is our Director of Facilities and Transportation. Mr. Hill was recently the Director of Buildings and Grounds for the South Kingstown School Department. He served in this position for 8 years. Previously, Mr. Hill was the Assistant Director of Buildings and Grounds in South Kingstown. Mr. Hill has great supervisory and technical skills. Mr. Hill will be revising the district's capital improvement plan and capital list for the FY23 budget. So we would like to welcome both of these wonderful individuals to our leadership team. And that's the end of the report. I think I did send it by email to Mrs. Amatrano, so hopefully you have it. And at least the citizens of Coventry can replay this if they are not listening tonight. So hopefully, goodwill will be spread by the school department. I don't know if anybody has any questions about this particular report.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming this evening. We do want to hear a monthly report. We were doing it for several years.
Yep.
For some reason, there was a hiatus for several months, and we're glad that we're starting this again, and we're looking forward to a monthly report at every meeting.
Well, the last meeting
of
the month.
every month. If
Yep.
you'd like to come more often, let us know. Are there any other questions or comments members of the council would like to ask Mrs. Patno? Mrs. Shockley?
I just had one question about the cyber security, But first, congratulations to all the students who have done so well. That's fantastic. I know for town government, we're moving to move our email addresses to .gov. I don't know if the school has anything similar to increase security from your .net, I believe.
Right. I'm not 100% sure. I guess we'll find out when we have the report, the final report. I think Mr. Levis was listening to the call, but if he is listening, maybe he'll have more information, but I can't really, you can always email him tomorrow. But that's a great question. As far as I know, I haven't heard anything about that, but it does kind of make sense if that's what they're recommending for your side.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Ms. Ludwig?
Thank you, Chair Patnode, for joining us. I did see the emailed copy in my packet tonight. Mr. Marchant, do we think we could get a copy of this put on the town website in the announcement space?
Yeah, that'd be no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Great
Any
idea.
other comments or concerns? Mr. LeBlanc?
Thank you, Chairwoman Patno, for joining us tonight. Just a question on school budget to actuals and finances. Will that ever be a part of this monthly report?
No, I don't think we decided that those monthly reports that we get, usually it's the last meeting of our month. And so it kind of is after this particular meeting, typically. And those reports will be sent to Ann and the town leadership, and they can be distributed to all of you. We didn't feel the school committee per se had the ability to respond to individual financial questions. And you guys are always welcome. I shouldn't say you guys, the members of the council are always welcome to, when you receive the report, the monthly reports that we have, have been presented to us, to ask questions to our finance director, the superintendent, et cetera.
Okay, great. And do you know when we'll receive the first report that you said that you're going to send to Ann?
I thought she already received some of the report from last month, but I could be mistaken. I don't know. President Dickson, do you have a copy of last month's?
We received, when I sent out an email asking for reports for July, August, September, October, November, and December, we did not receive individual monthly reports. And I also asked for the transparency report also from July 1st to December 31st. So we did not receive the individual monthly reports, and I have sent a follow-up asking for those individual reports. So that's the only thing that we received a few weeks ago in December. We have not received individual monthly reports at all.
All right, we'll look into that and make sure. I'm not sure what the delay on that is.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mrs. Lima.
Thank you. So really appreciate this. Love hearing about the good things going on and updates in leadership as well. If possible too, I don't know about any of the other council members, but I'd love to hear more about upcoming events. I know COVID has limited those, but I enjoyed being able to attend some events late summer, early fall semester for the school department. So if those should, come up again, or any other kind of things like that, would love it, to hear more about those, to be able to attend when I can and support students and faculty. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think we typically, in our old reporting format, we did announce when the new play was going to be, when, there were special events at the high school or any of the elementary. So we'll make sure that district-wide sort of celebrations or sporting events, et cetera, will come your way, because I agree it's nice for you guys to attend.
Thanks so much.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Chairperson Patno. Good to see you again. And who will be presenting next month?
I believe it will be Mr. Florio.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next on our agenda, Coventry School Building Committee final report. Vice Chairperson Alida Hall will be presenting. Alida?
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Welcome,
this will be-
Alita. How are you today?
Oh, I'm good. How are you doing?
Excellent.
Good. It's nice to see you all. This will easily be the quickest school building committee report that you guys have had throughout the tenure.
We
Just
have not asked for a short report.
Well, there's not really much to report. So, obviously we all know this body voted down the project that was proposed at the December 20th meeting. We called just a follow-up school building committee meeting to get the members together. The intent was to give everyone just a forum to go talk through how they felt about it. Obviously, we're all very disappointed. That's, probably an understatement to say. It was, we put a lot of time into it. We put a good 2 years into that, and we really wanted to be able to present something that was really meaningful for the kids. But it's not happening in this cycle right now. That's fine. We also did at the end of that meeting, it wasn't just a gripe session, right? We did some plus delta type conversation, like what went well with our process, what could have gone better. So, that stuff's available. I didn't take really notes on it. It was quite emotional throughout it, honestly. And, but it's available, it's recorded. And I think the thought is that eventually, maybe one day, that this body will empower another school building committee. Whether or not any of the current members of this one are part of it, I guess it's left to be seen. But just kind of the reminder, right? Our schools need help. I don't want this council to take their eye off of that. I know you're working on just strategic planning and your long-term plan. I don't know, at some point, I just really hope that the voters get to weigh in. I hope that when you come up with a list and priorities and what you guys think that the town's direction should be, that the voters get to look, if the schools aren't high up on that priority list, and I think that there's something wrong with that. So and that's just me. After having been involved in the school building committee, I honestly had no opinion of the schools one way or the other prior to this process. I would walk to my kids' school at Western and pick them up every now and again, and it'd be buckets catching water, and you see that around buildings, right? So I didn't think much of it until I got involved in this process and walked through all of these other schools and saw that there's really, fundamental deficiencies everywhere. And, since the last time we met and voted it down, my kids have missed a day of school because there was an issue with the well that they needed to get cleaned up for water. The middle school, my understanding, is dumping a few $100,000 into the HVAC system. There's a group of classrooms that have no heat that the kids are in. So I just want to remind you guys that stuff is still going on. I'm not sure the timeline for it. I do know there was some follow-up with Rhode after. For fiscal year 23, our reimbursement amount does go up. Our base goes up to 49.2%. Excuse me, from where it was at 45 prior. So there is still an opportunity to recoup, large portions of state money percentage wise for any real capital improvements that you want to do in the schools. And the one thing that I would kind of throw out to this group, if and when you do decide to empower a new building committee, please give them some guidance. I don't think we had a dollar value. I don't want to see another body go down the road we went. We put a whole bunch of time and effort in just to have it shot down for a dollar number value that I think if we would have had an idea up front of where we really were, then we could have worked differently. And I don't know that that's anybody's fault, right? Totally different council, totally different town manager, finance manager, school committee. All of the players have changed, and I fear that a percentage of them will change again before the next project even gets started. But whatever you guys can do to kind of help level it, give them some real guidance and direction, and just give them a shot at putting something nice together for the schools would be great.
Vice Chairperson Hall, I was hoping that at your final report that you provide us with an extensive debrief or lessons learned that could be a guidance for any new committee that might be formed. And I heard you say provide more guidance on the dollar number. But what else did your group discuss when it was at its final meeting to prepare this final report? Because that's one piece of information, but what else did they provide for information that would be lessons learned or a debrief of the project?
Honestly, Ann, a lot of it would be more fitting advice for another building committee, not necessarily for council. We talked a lot about things that worked well as far as our decision-making process, how we got to deciding on what the project would be and things like that. And overall, I don't think a lot of what was discussed there is kind of like advice that we could say, council, here's what you could do better beyond number one, a budget number, and then whoever it is, if there is a project, a priority, something that is what people want to see, I think you should give the council that, because I did hear a couple different comments about maybe it should have been this project or that project. If someone has an idea of a project, I think people should know that up front as well, because if one of the reasons for voting it down was because someone thought it should have been different, I mean, having that guidance up front could have went down a different path. So honestly, I think those are the two areas that a council or school committee type of body would have benefited from our conversation. A lot of the dialogue was just the interaction of the building committee. And again, if you guys were to convene another, no one on our committee wouldn't probably, I'm assuming everyone would be comfortable to come sit down with the group and say, hey, here's what we did, here's how it went. And here's how we got to what we think was a really cohesive process that developed a really extensive project.
I hear what you're saying, but I was hoping there would be something that we could write into the record so that information could be passed from one group to the other, because by the time another committee may or may not be instituted, maybe none of us will be on the council. Maybe no one who was on the school building committee will be available. So we don't want to lose lessons learned if there's anything that could be at least written into this record for this meeting.
I can try to go back through the notes, like I said, and I was very emotional at that meeting. I had my kids calling me in one room and I'm trying to be in there. It just wasn't, I didn't kind of get that. I didn't get that type of a writing of it. And honestly, knowing that we as a committee were being dissolved and not knowing there was a timeline on the next one and all the bodies would be different. Again, I think it was just, we left it that it was being recorded, that we could go back and look at it. It's the January 11th school building committee meeting. I could go in and try to document those and email that around as the items that came of it. But I did not at that time take those types of notes because, again, I'm assuming we are officially dissolved.
As your time permits, it would be helpful to pass on some of these helpful hints that could be, as I said, in the meeting minutes and could be passed on. So it's sort of a legacy that you're leaving. Okay.
I was about to say, I'll do that and I'll just email it out to the council members, districts 1 through 5, and I'll get that out in the next week or so.
That would be great. Any members of the council would like to ask any questions?
Just want to say thank you for your time, Alita. I really appreciate the update. And I appreciate the time that you put into the project.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank
And
you.
again,
Yes.
and I just want to go on the record. So again, I because of what I do for a living, I've sat in on a lot of these building committees and I just felt like I could really help the process. I don't know that depending on where it lands, the time commitment that it turned out to be, I'm not into, you elected officials and people who do this, praise to you. I couldn't do it. And I found that out while doing this, like my kids turning every day, wondering where I'm at or what I'm doing. So, but I do, if you get somewhere, again, my email, my contact info will be on what I send. If there's anything I can actually do to help, I'm not sure what the next composition of your committee will be. Right now, I can't say I'd love to be on another building committee, but I also, if the town needs my help and I can help, will make myself available. So.
That's very generous of you, very generous of you. So we're going to have a recognition. We have a certificate of recognition. Copies will be made for each member of the Coventry Building Committee. I'm just going to read this recognition. It's a little bit long because you did work for a long period of time, over 2 years. So I'm going to read this very quickly, and then we will have copies ready for distribution to members of your group. Whereas on October 15th, 2019, the Coventry Town Council adopted Resolution 103-19-5102 to appoint a bipartisan school building committee of 9 members. The purpose of the committee was to reconcile the requirements of the Town of Coventry Charter Section 4.07D with the requirements of the Rhode Island Department of Education Building Regulation 1.082 pertaining to school improvements and construction. And whereas the Coventry Town Council vetted and appointed community members to the Coventry Building Committee who were experts in commercial building design and construction, civil engineering, and public education. The first committee meeting was held October 24th, 2019. And whereas over the course of its 2-year engagement, the CBC conducted focus meetings at each of the 7 schools, toured schools, presented before the town council, and engaged with expert consultants, architects, Rhode Island Department of Education members, and other Rhode Island public school administrators. And whereas on February 10th, 2020, and then on February 5th, 2021, the town council approved the Coventry Building Committee Phase 1 and Phase 2 submissions to the Rhode Island Department of Education. And whereas on January 24th, 2022, the Coventry Building Committee provided a final report to the council that will be a model for future school building projects. And whereas this certificate recognizes the dedication, expertise, and commitment of the following Coventry Building Committee members for the 2-year project. Representing the town council, Kimberly Shockley and Ann Dickson. Representing the school committee members, Kathy Patno and Lucas Murray, who was the chair. Electors of the town included Robert Levesque, Christine Kennedy, Alita Hall, who was vice chair, John Priest, Wesley Restall. School principals, Joseph Lucian and Amy Anzalone. School building head of buildings, Jason Martin. Educational mission, Donald Coward, Coventry Public Schools Assistant Superintendent. Budget official, Sarah Mangiarelli, and then Harold Sands. Coventry's town solicitor, Nicholas Gorham, who was a non-voting member, and Craig Levis, Coventry Building Schools Superintendent, who was a non-voting member. In testimony thereof, and on behalf of the town council, I have hitherto set my hand and caused the seal of the town to be affixed this 24th day of January, 2022. Thank you so much, Alita, and your committee, and we're very happy that we're able to recognize your achievements over a long period of time. This resolution was sponsored by Mrs. Shockley and by me, and by the rest of the council.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now we have another recognition, a recognition of Denise Degrade, Vice Chair of the Zoning Board. And I see that Denise is with us this evening. Hello, Denise. Cody, are you able to bring her in, Denise Degrade?
I'm making her a panelist now. She should be in shortly.
Denise, can you go on video so that we can see you?
Hello.
Denise. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Excellent.
Good.
This is a certificate of recognition from the Coventry Town Council. The Coventry Town Council is pleased to recognize Denise Degrade for outstanding loyalty and dedicated service as a member of the Coventry Zoning Board of Review from May 1991 as an alternate through January 2022 as a full member. We wish to extend our most sincere gratitude for your years of service. Thank you so much, Denise.
Well, thank you very much for this honor. I do appreciate it. It had always been an honor and a privilege to represent the town and its citizens on the Zoning Board of Review, and I'm grateful for all of the time that I had there.
And what could you give us some lessons learned?
Keep an open mind. And I always strived not to have outside conversations with people placing applications before the zoning board. I always wanted to hear the application at the meeting and never get anything ahead of time. It just didn't sit right with me, that kind of thing. And I mean, some things are difficult to do. Some of the larger couple of things that we had were the comprehensive permits for huge subdivisions that included a lot of, low income, not a lot of, but 20% low income, low moderate income housing. Those are difficult. And while housing is needed everywhere, obviously all over the state, there's a lack of housing for people. But, some things are difficult, some things are a lot easier, and sometimes you think, why is this even here? But it was an enjoyable experience, and I really, really learned a lot. And I think now it's time to let other citizens that want to participate with the town to go ahead and do so.
Thank you so much. Your certificate will be mailed to you, Denise. So
Well,
just contact Ms. Almatrano to ensure that she has the correct address, okay?
I will. Thank you very much, President Dickson.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your service.
Thank you. And you all have a good night, and thank you.
Thank you. Agenda E5, Coventry Monthly Finance Report for December 2021. Ms. Mills.
Hello. Attached is a budget update for December 2021. This represents 50% of the current fiscal year. Prior, I guess we went into this before. We did a little executive summary there. So for the first 6 months of FY22, we have a surplus of $3,323,867. And as this time last year, for FY21, we had $5,493,059. So revenues are currently 57.95% higher than last year's 54.81. We're still working on internal controls in various departments. We've added a few more. It's a big process, breaking down all this revenue that was booked in miscellaneous income and putting it into the proper department. And on top of that, we're strengthening internal controls with cash registers and other means. Revenue, let's see, we already know about the ARPA funding that was received this year. And expenditures are at 50.41% higher than last year's 49.30. That should do it.
Okay. Members of the council, any questions for Ms. Mills on her report? Mrs. Shockley.
Okay, thank you for this report. I just ask at the bottom of page 45, the executive summary. I show an ARPA capital outlay under total expenditures under the school. So it's towards the bottom, the 98,469. So I don't see it under revenue. Is it not been, I know the school has to do things differently. So we've paid for the expense and we're waiting to get the reimbursement.
Okay, so that's one of the, so the ARPA funds that are above in the federal aid for the revenue of 5.2 million, of that, the town council has voted on to utilize in one resolution for some DPW equipment. I think the resolution was for like 111,000 to be used, some of the ARPA funds. And we only needed to use 98,000 because we had other funds.
So that's ours, not the schools. It's below.
Yeah, it's just,
Okay.
So it's, yeah, the school expenditures and total expenditures for the general fund. And then there's your APRA expenditures. I think next month, what I'm going to do is just break out the APRA and have it below both the revenue and the expenditures. So it'd be easier to read.
And now it makes sense why it's 5,105,000.
Right.
And in your revenue write-up, it's 5.2. Okay, perfect. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I just, you also have telephone tax on page 46. And what we have budgeted for revenue is $430,000, which is about the same as what we had budgeted last year. But we haven't received any. Is this the sort of thing that we get at the end of the year?
Yes, it is. Usually in June.
Okay, it's just we had such a high amount that we're expecting. We expected it last year. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding that correctly. And I think that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions by members of the council on this report? We all set to move on? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mills. An early evening for you.
You're welcome.
Agenda F6, President Dickson updates. This is a familiar story, but there's good hope. There's good news too. There are openings on the following boards and commissions. Parks and Recreation. Every month we're getting 1 or 2 more applications, and we're very close to having a full Parks and Recreation Commission. Meanwhile, we can form an ad hoc group so that that group can get going, but we are looking for people who have a strong interest in wanting to improve the recreational offerings for our town. So please do apply if this is of interest to you. We need young and old. In fact, the charter requires us to have both representation from both the youth at the high school, the average citizen, whether you play a sport or not, plus the senior citizens. So we're looking for across the whole age range. Please do apply. We're also looking for a member for the Sewer Subcommittee, and this committee is very active these days because we have a good complement of people, very talented people in that group, and we're looking forward to having that full complement for the Sewer Subcommittee. It's going to be very active, and we expect that anyone who applies for this group will find it a very valuable experience. And we're also looking for someone for the Zoning Board of Review, because as you know, Ms. Degrade has resigned and we need to replace her. So please do apply if you are interested in that. The next one is good news. One of our Coventry residents is turning 100 years old. And Ms. Lima, do you have the recognition that I forwarded to you? Would you like to read it?
Yes, I've got the certificate in front of me. So the Coventry Town Council is pleased to recognize lifelong resident Viola Sroka on her 100th birthday for her love and service to the community. The Town Council wishes you hearty congratulations on this special day. In testimony whereof, and on behalf of the Town Council, hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the town to be affixed this 24th day of January 2022. So happy birthday to Viola. And I do believe that there's a parade happening this weekend. They're going to be driving by her house starting at Town Hall in the afternoon. So if anyone's interested in joining, I know it's in a couple of the Facebook groups, but I bet she'd really appreciate it. So good for her.
Excellent. So we're happy to recognize our community members who are turning 100, even 90 is good to recognize. Let's even go down at 80, 70. We have longtime residents and they've been giving service to our community and they've been really of great value. Please do let us know. You don't have to wait to be 100 to be recognized by the Town Council. Next announcement. Mr. Lucas Murray resigned his school committee seat for District 1 in December 2021. I have asked the Board of Canvassers to hold a special election as quickly as possible. The position will fill the unexpired term to November 2024. So if you are interested in running for office for school committee for District 1, please contact Lori Anderson for information. Needless to say, you have to be a resident of District 1. So thank you.
President Dickson?
Yes.
So can you just clarify the point in the charter about appointing instead of an election?
Mr. Gorham has given me a ruling on that. Mr. Gorham?
That's a good question. So according to the town charter, the town council can appoint if the vacancy is created less than 12 months before the next regular election, which—
With that position, just to clarify?
Excuse me?
Before the regular election specifically for that position, or?
Well, that's, you've hit the marrow. I think the only way to construe the charter and the words regular election, as Ms. Member Shockley has pointed out, that really is the turnkey on the interpretation. The only way to construe that is to mean the next election for that seat at the end of its term, because later they talk about the unexpired term. So one of the ideas that I had, that I thought about, was, well, why couldn't you just appoint, let the town council appoint, and the next regular election is 2022. The trouble is that the council can do one thing or another. It can appoint and then wait for the next, for the term to expire, because that section also talks about the unexpired term. Or it can have a special election. Those are the only choices. And you just can't reconcile the words regular election with anything but the election that comes at the unexpired term of that person. That unexpired term, which Mr. Murray had just been elected to, was 2020 to 2024. So the only way to look at it is that we are, in fact, more than 12 months away from the next regular election. And therefore, it is appropriate to have a special election. You know, the only downside to it is that with a special election, you just don't get as much of a representative turnout as in a decennial election, the election we have every 2 years. So one of the things that the Charter Review Commission might want to take up, now that they're duly constituted, is a change to that section to make it a little clearer, and so that we can sort of get, you know, if we want to have an election sooner.
That makes sense. I just want to, I think I thought that the school committee seats matched with the election years for the town council seats. And I see now that that's not the case, but I just wanted to be sure, because when you talk a special election, that's 20 grand, I think, for the town. I mean, it's a significant amount of money. So I just want to make sure that we're all clear and we're making the correct decision in accordance with the charter. So I appreciate the clarification on that.
When we had a meeting with Mr. Gorham, he originally had suggested that we would consider appointing till November 22nd and then having an election that would run for a term that would go between November 22nd and November 2022 and November 2024. Following that discussion, Mr. D'Agostino contacted me, and he felt that it was a more conservative approach to have a special election and have that taken care of. He was fearful that someone might come back and say, we were not able to do that. And so he recommended that we have the special election and just elect someone that would go through to 2024. Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you, President Dickson. Just a quick question. I think this is a question for either Ben. I believe the first time Mr. Murray ran, it was a special election. I just didn't know how much that cost the town. How much does a special election cost? I mean, I know Councilwoman Lima threw out 20,000. Is that approximate to cost?
I thought it was more like 13.
Well, so am I on the, okay. So I asked that for the budget referendum last year, a regular election for the budget referendum is $20,000. And that was pretty consistent with the prior budget referendums in the prior year, where we had 3 other votes. This would be a little different because you're only doing it for one district, not all 5 districts. And so it would be some percentage of that, but there's still the whole organization printing. And so there's a certain amount of overhead. I don't think it would be 1/5 of 20,000. I think it probably still might cost $10,000 to run it, but I don't have those actual numbers. So
okay. I was just curious. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I think from my point of view, there's another compelling reason to have a special election, and that is if the council were to appoint someone for District 1, that would mean that each of us is weighing in on who would be the representative for District 1. And right now it is the voters in District 1 who approve the representative for that particular district. And I would like to see the people who are going to be represented be the ones who would make the decision and not the full council, unless there is some reason, compelling reason why we would not want to go that route.
I
Mr.
don't
Cole?
think anyone, I just want to make it clear, I'm not advocating for either way. I just know in the past, this council has been tripped up by not making sure we check with the charter. So I just wanted to do our due diligence to make sure that we're following our own rules and everything is all set. That's all.
Thank you for the clarification. Yes, we did check with the charter and we checked with 2 legal counsels. Mr. Gorham, you have your hand up?
Yes, the cost of a special election should be less than the last one we had, because since then, the General Assembly has changed the law so that I think it's pretty probable that we don't have to have all 4 precincts open. It will be our choice, but under the new law that was passed, I think we can have 2 precincts for voting, that is polling places, instead of 4. When you have 4, it gets really expensive.
Well, yeah, for mine last year, it was 1 precinct. That was it.
Yeah.
So I would imagine it'd be the same for 1 district.
Right. So.
Okay. Any other comments or concerns? All right, moving forward, agenda F7, town manager update, Mr. Marchant.
Thank you, Madam President. So first is the update on the American Rescue Plan survey that we have out at the suggestion of Councillor Shockley that we put out on Code Red, a text alert. We did that and we had astonishing results. The text went out to 2,000 people and we went from 137 surveys to 256 in 5 minutes. So we had 100 instant responses, and in the hours and days since that went out, I don't know how many more we have, but we do have that survey open through the end of this month so that anyone listening tonight can tell their friends and family to get on the website and or check their text messages if they're not signed up for Code Red. They might want to, and give us their input about what the best way is that the town can invest those funds from the federal government to help the community. There are specific parameters that we have to follow, but we welcome that input.
Spirit of full disclosure, a member of the community asked on Nextdoor why he was finding out about it on Nextdoor. So it was an idea from a community member.
Wonderful. And I think sometimes word of mouth is the best marketing you can hope for. So that doesn't hurt. On the strategic planning front, the town council met on Tuesday, January 11th to continue the discussion on strategic planning, and we're getting closer to a refined statement of the town's strategic plan. That is next on the agenda tonight to continue that discussion. A request for proposals was issued to search for firms in the wind energy business to assist the town in enforcing its ordinances pertaining to wind turbines, flicker, sound, and that sort of thing. Originally, that RFP had a deadline of the 21st, but it has been extended to the 31st. And I sent out a number of emails to companies that appeared to be in the business. One got back to me and said, as much as they would like to help, they're located in Scotland and are not prepared to help. But they thanked me for reaching out. The performance audit is ongoing, and there has been a little bit of a delay in getting the internal survey of employees out. I understand that Mr. Pennington will be meeting with Superintendent Levis this week to get his feedback on the survey as it applies to the members of the school department or Coventry public schools. And everything else is on track. They've been interviewing staff and elected officials, and they've been asking for documents, and they've been reviewing it. And so everything's going according to plan. And we hope to have that survey disseminated to staff by the end of this week, hopefully. And we should be on track for getting a report in the next month.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marchant. Any
So-
questions? I'm sorry.
Just the last update on the comprehensive plan is it's moving forward, and the Director Crossman is putting together a comprehensive plan steering committee. He is seeking representatives from each of the districts, as well as community-minded people that want to have a say in the development of how this town is going to grow in the future, and look at things such as zoning concerns and development patterns, and what the town might need to be prepared for the next new technology that may want to establish itself here.
Ms. Ludwig?
Yeah, just a question, Manager Marchant, on the comprehensive plan. You called it kind of like a steering committee group. Can we get some information from Director Crossman on kind of the group makeup? Because I've had a few people reach out to me asking whether they're allowed to be on that type of group, if they're, for example, if they're on one of the town committees, if they're a employee of the town, things like that. So can we get some just general guidelines on?
Since this is an ad hoc committee, the rules are not so strict and about participation, and Director Crossman is going to be taking the lead in putting this committee together. So he'll meet with interested parties and get an understanding of their interest and contributions.
Okay.
Any other question? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to confirm. So anybody who's interested can, so do they reach out to Director Crossman?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions by members of the council? Okay, we'll move on to agenda G, review of the Town of Coventry strategic plan, reference pages 19 to 24. The vote on this plan will take place in February. That allows members of the council to discuss the plan and to think about it, and the vote will not take place until February. Mr. Marchant, would you like to make some opening statements about the plan that you sent forth for us to review?
Certainly. So what you have tonight is two drafts of the strategic plan. One is the one that I initially sent out after our last meeting, and the second one had a number of revisions based on responses I received after that from council members, especially President Dickson. And so because a lot of people had said they were happy with the first version, I wanted to have both of them at your fingertips so that you could kind of discuss among yourselves the differences, variances, and come to a consensus about what best reflects the shared goal and priorities for the town council.
So I'll open it up to discussion by members of the council. You've all had a chance, hopefully, to read this draft that was sent out. Any comments?
So in all honesty, I didn't realize two were sent on purpose. So I only looked at the first one. I thought it was an error in printing the packet. And the only comment I have, and this is on page 52, is I'm wondering if under priority 1, number 4, we might want to not limit ourselves, take out the word only. Because while I know that that is something we want to be a basis for many of our decisions, and possibly I'm being too myopic because it does say community programs. But one thing that just springs to mind is something like a dog park. A lot of people have said it would be great to have one. I don't know, and maybe there are ways that I just don't know about, that could be a revenue source. But it's something that a lot of residents of Coventry want. So I worry when you put only or never or on anything. So just something I wanted to bring up. And like I said, I didn't look at both, so I'm not sure the differences.
That's the same on both. So
I
if there's
did notice that,
consensus
yep.
on a part of the council, we can take out the word only. It was a high emphasis that we pursue programs that are cost neutral or revenue generating, but certainly the statement of priorities isn't like setting your policy in stone. It's a guideline for how staff is going to approach preparing the budget and making recommendations for capital investments. And so if we were to propose something like a dog park, because we got a 25% matching grant or whatever, it's not going to be cost neutral. It might cost us a little bit. You know, you could still say, well, it doesn't meet this ideal, but there's enough people in the community to support this. This won't prevent you from doing it. This is more of a statement of your values and giving staff direction, so that if we bring a completely different proposal, let's say we need to have a horse jumping competition arena, and no one's ever heard of it before, and it's going to cost a lot of money. Well, this would be a reason not to bring it forward. So
I just thought it doesn't change the meaning, but
right.
It doesn't make it quite so set in stone. That's all.
The second one, instead of calling them overarching strategic priorities, we just took out the word overarching. I don't have the notes in front of me, the changes. I might have, it would have been a good idea to print them out and include them in the packet, because there were some good suggestions, but you know, I think to some degree, some of it was style, some of it was tone, really coming down to the verbiage of what represents the council's feelings about how they express this document.
Other comments, Ms. Ludwig?
Thank you. So under the updated copy, or even under the non-updated copy, when residents read this and they see the town of Coventry, this is meant to include everything, right? Schools, town. Is this meant to be all encompassing? Because I think we've said it should be.
Yes, in the sense that the town council is the supreme governing body for the whole town, and this sets the tone. But as you know, the school committee may not share these goals or values, and this isn't really something that you can impose on them, but you can promote them. So as the town manager, this is more of a guiding policy to run the municipal side, and that I know following these principles, I'll have the support of the town council. The school committee might be well advised to consider it and reference it in their budget development proposals and priorities. And to the extent that the town council can make that recommendation, we would encourage them to do so.
I feel like we need some more brainstorming here about how the school fits in here. So what I mean is, we can't have, in my opinion, one set of priorities and then the school committee goes out and makes their own set of priorities and they're at odds against each other. Just, it wouldn't make sense to your average resident. It's not going to make sense. I think we've put the school in, for example, priority 3 under infrastructure, but even under, you know, the numbers, we don't have anything specific for the school here. So I don't have an answer right at this moment. I'm just pointing out that for your average resident who takes a look at this, you know, where 60+% of the budget is on the school side, this just does not this doesn't mention the schools enough. And I don't know how to kind of bridge that right now. I'm just kind of highlighting it to say, I think we need some sort of collaboration, discussion, some sort of session. Like we've had 2 offsites now where we have, well, they're not really offsites because one technically was in town hall. You know what I mean? We've had 2 meetings where we've sat down and we've kind of whittled down to kind of these core things. And I don't know how to kind of create that bridge there, but it feels like we need some sort of input from the school side to help make this feel like an actual town plan. And I'm not saying I want to go out and ask them to have their own set of goals or anything like that, but maybe even some sort of conversation or something where we say, hey, this is what we're thinking of for townwide priorities. Is there anything else in here that you think would be important to put in here? And I'm not talking about curriculum. I'm not talking about the specifics. Just like, for example, we asked to specifically take out specifics in this to say, I don't want you to tell me that you're gonna take out a cash register. I want you to tell me we're gonna go all digital. So same guidelines, but I think we need to have a little bit of thought about how to weave them in a bit more, particularly under priority 3.
So at this point, this has been a conversation just with municipal staff and the town council. I would suggest maybe you'd like to share the draft strategic plan with the school committee and ask for their input. I don't know if you need to have a joint meeting with them if it's going to raise to that level, but you could certainly ask for formal input onto this plan in how they might like to see some school priorities represented or included.
And I don't think we have to make a decision tonight. I'm just kind of, I'm hoping that I'm pointing out the obvious, and maybe we can all have a think about how we want to see this move forward with them.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LeBlanc?
Thank you, President Dickson. A couple things. I just want to share some thoughts. First, Ben, I really think you did a great job putting this together. I appreciate it. Second, I agree that all of these items are extremely important, but for me in particular, a couple stick out. Priority 1, number 2, develop a 5-year financial plan and budget strategy. One thing, I don't know if we need to add it in this, but when we were voting on it, I would like to see some deadlines of when that's actually going to be completed. Because that would, I mean, I know we have 2022, 2020 through 2026, but I would hope that we don't wait until 2026 to actually develop that plan. So I know I'm stating the obvious, but I just like to see some deadlines on that one in particular.
So
go ahead.
Deadlines are appropriate for an action plan. And as a strategic plan, this is global general strategy. So I would say that we will put deadlines into the budget process, and we'll have those conversations, kind of the next steps. Once you have the strategic plan, okay, what's your action plan and what's your implementation plan? What's the schedule? And so we'll build that in.
I hear you. I still would like to see some proposed dates, I guess. Maybe we don't have a full action plan done, but by the time we vote on this, just so taxpayers know when these things might get finished, that would be helpful. Priority 3, number 2 in particular, develop and implement a 5-year capital budget program. I think that's extremely important. Again, would like to know a deadline of when we might be done with that. I bring it up for a couple reasons. One, we actually need it for impact fees calculations. So we probably need it right now, to be honest. And two, we have a budget that we have to develop for next year, and CIP is certainly a line item in that budget, and it would be helpful to have. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then I just have one suggestion. In priority 1, if we could add a number 6, this again, just throwing it out there, but file our town's financial statements timely and not on extensions. I do know in the past, for so many different reasons, we've always kind of had to be on extension, but it would be nice to have financials while we go through the budget process. Just wanted to share my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Other comments? Okay, I did submit a list of comments to Mr. Marchant. Some of them have to do with use of grammar, etc. I didn't focus on that, however. On page 1, the list of organizational values. I personally do not see a value in having a litany of words that have no definition. So the core values are fine. Unless we had extensive discussions and did voting, it would be hard for us to all maybe come to agreement on all of these values. But to have 3 to 5 core values seems appropriate, but to have a list of organizational values without definitions do not seem appropriate, because without a definition, it would be impossible for us to do any kind of measurement or even assessment of how well we are performing to these values. So I'm concerned about the use of words for which there is not clarity. I do agree with Jamie that developing deadlines for these things are important, but I do agree with Mr. Marchant that these usually occur in an action plan. And so what we have is a list of goals, but each of those need an action plan associated with them. And that's where we would come and see the deadlines that would be required. For priority 2, basically, I think priority 1 and 2 did convey the comments made by the council. Priority 3, I have to wholeheartedly agree with Ms. Ludwig. There is a mention of the word school in the priority 3, but school never appears anyplace else in this document. And what I put down, I asked, does this include school in town as priority 3? It calls out schools, but it seems lost in the goals and action plan. So I do believe that we need to go back to the drawing table and somehow come to some kind of resolution about how we put a little more focus on a department within the town, which receives 69.3% of the budget, and it's not called out at all. So we need to do that. And then I also had questions about words like in the last outcome where it says the sustainability of a healthy infrastructure. I have no clue what we mean by healthy. So I would just suggest that we would go through the document and look at words that are used. Words are very important in a document like this. Go through words that are used. And if we cannot have a good definition for what that word means or consensus, then that word should just be eliminated. So it maybe it just says sustainability of an infrastructure. But the word healthy, as I said, I don't understand what healthy means. So I would suggest that we eliminate terms for which there are no definitions, eliminate terms that are vague, unclear, and would cause concern among many people who would then be using this document as an assessment or an evaluation tool of how well the town council is performing to these goals, and also to look into what we can do to improve the use of language relating to the schools, especially in priority 3. So those are the highlights of the comments that I made.
So on page 56, I did take out the word healthy.
Okay, I didn't see that version.
Yeah, so I don't know if it captures the same essence of what we're going for, but I put the town will achieve the sustainability of a sound base of well-maintained infrastructure from which to deliver services. So a sound base, a healthy infrastructure, it's all very ambiguous to say, look, we don't want to have streets that are falling apart. We want them sufficiently maintained to keep them sustainable, because if you fall too far behind on your maintenance, you're going into a hole you can't dig yourself out of. So it needs to be healthy enough or good enough, but I don't know how to say good enough to be sustainable.
I think that many of the comments made this evening are easy fixes. It's the fix that's the more difficult one is what we do about including the school in this document. What would be the appropriate way to include the school? And I think you made the suggestion that perhaps we would share a draft with the school committee and ask for their input. And that might be a good place to start because the school is always saying that they want to be included in decision-making, and here's an opportunity for us to get some feedback and input, and then we could proceed with the kind of comments that they would make to us. but somehow the document seems missing with the non-discussion, I guess you could say, of schools.
Well, I think that's just a practical reality that the school didn't participate in the strategic planning meetings.
Sure.
They're really not a department that I have any jurisdiction over, and it wasn't really built with the governance of the school in mind, because we have for better or worse, a system of shared governance between the town council and the school committee. And to the extent that the school committee has a large degree of autonomy over the administration of the school programs, I don't really have a way of working that in from where I sit, but I think this is a great opportunity for the town council to reach out and work with the school committee.
Well, the other possibility I was just thinking of is that instead of trying to weave the school into priority 3, perhaps we would ask the school committee to develop a priority 4, which would list a top priority for it and goals and related to that, so that perhaps we could integrate feedback that they would give to us as to what the priority would be. So maybe priority 4 for the town really focuses on the school. So perhaps we could use that as an approach.
Certainly.
Any other comments by Mrs. Lima?
Thanks, President Dickson. So agree with a lot of the comments we've heard this evening. I think this came out great, so thank you for tackling this, Ben. The one thing that's running through my mind, and this might be a little preemptive of our next step, is I'm always conscious of implementation and keeping things like this top of mind. We've put a lot of hours into this, so I don't want this to just fall into a pile somewhere or on some server. And I just want to keep in mind moving forward how we want to make sure we really stick to this. And I know you talked about an action plan that will come, but I'm always just cognizant. I've been on some committees that have done things like this before, and then they just collect dust. And I just really want to make sure that we are cognizant of that and find ways that we can get not just this council, but also those who work for the town invested in this plan as well, and educated about what we're trying to do and involved. So that was just kind of the thought that I had, but it sounds like that's coming next. But I feel like this document also too could use kind of something wrapping up at the end saying, this is, this document where it lends itself to, referring to an action plan maybe, or something else. I mean, there's no guarantee that all of the people on this call are going to be involved all 5 years. I don't know. So anything that can help future people who are involved and help longevity and liaisoning this process, I think is important. So thank you. And, looking forward to next steps and seeing the next version.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'd just like to highlight what Councilor Lima just said about having a policy or document that future town council members and school committee members can refer to and rely on. This really does set the tone and the direction of the organization. So as people come and go, they're not left wondering, where do we start? And no one has to reinvent the wheel, because they can say, oh, here we are. These are the priorities. These are what we're working on. And then they can go, okay, is there an action plan? And then they can find the plans, and these will be integrated and ingrained into every single department director's operation, budget, and thinking, because this is what the town council has said is the priority, and this is the direction they will follow. So that's the value of it. It has a lot of staying power once it is fully embraced and adopted.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're moving on to Agenda H, public comment. Please raise your hand in Zoom and you'll be recognized and brought into the meeting. Please state your name and address. We have one hand up, David Schwartz. Mr. Horton, could you please allow David in?
Am I in?
You are, we can't see you, however.
I'm
Do you have
not,
video capability?
I don't know how to do it, Madam
But
President.
Mrs. Dixon, attendees can't turn on their video. He'd have to be promoted to a panelist to be able to do that.
Oh, okay. Oh, all
So I just
right. Okay,
have,
excuse me, David, please introduce yourself by name and your address and then make your comment.
David Schwartz, 2049 Flat River Road. It's more of a question. What's the difference between the comprehensive plan and the strategic plan? And does either one of them value the rural nature of Coventry or address?
Okay, Mr. Marchant.
So thank you for your question, Mr. Schwartz. The strategic plan is more of an immediate strategy for how the town is going to approach its budgeting and capital investments over the next 1 to 5 years. And it's really more focused on operations and what can move the town forward as an organization. I think what you're interested in is the comprehensive plan, which is a plan that's looking in the next 20 to 30 years of the town and its growth and development and values. And that is where you're really going to dig into what the town can do as far as policies that will preserve the rural character of Western Coventry, that will provide for the safe and responsible development of other parts of town. And that's where we're going to be wrestling with those issues. So the comprehensive plan is updated once every 10 years. And that's pretty much how frequently you need to do it to keep up with the changing trends in the economy, technology, development patterns, and that sort of thing. So if this is something you're interested in, we'd love to have your participation in the comprehensive planning process.
I would be very interested.
Great. If you could contact myself or the town clerk in the next day or two with your contact information, we'll get it to Director Crossman and we'll see if we can get you involved.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom who's attending who would like to make a comment? Please raise your hand. Okay. Mr. Corcoran. Mr. Corcoran, please state your name and address, please. Mr. Corcoran, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes, just a question about the assessment. Did I hear that the information about the assessment will be posted for review? I'm just curious about, there was a statistical, it's a statistical review, or is it an actual property, individual property assessment that's being done by I believe it was Northeast Assessment Company?
Ms. Mills, would you respond to that question, please? You're on mute, Ms. Mills.
It's a statistical.
Could you explain for the public what statistical means?
Here.
You're on mute again.
It's not a full reval.
So what is the difference between a full revaluation and a statistical revaluation?
Well, it's to get into the, I guess I could get into a little bit of detail, but I mean, it is what it is. Statistical is statistical. The full reval is, they go to every piece of property.
So with the statistical revaluation, they have a random sampling of properties that gives a representative value of the homes and properties in town. And that's how they base their valuation.
I'm not sure that's a correct statement, but I can get the further information for you.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. That's exactly where I was going. What percentage is used in that statistical evaluation process, and how is it geographically differentiated amongst the town?
What we'll do is we'll post a fact sheet on the website so that people can learn more about that.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. Are there any other members of the public who would like to ask a question? Okay, I see none. So we'll move to agenda I. May I have a motion to adjourn?
President Dickson.
Oh, yes, Mr. LeBlanc.
I just want to make a public comment. I wanted to talk about it during F7, which is town manager updates, but it wasn't technically listed there. Obviously, we can't act on this. We can't really discuss it, but I would appreciate an update from the town manager on maybe the kind of where things stand. I know we talked about it. We put some decent amount of work into it, but I just didn't really know a game plan related to when we would be speaking about it again. So again, don't need anything right now, but just I guess food for thought for next meeting or subsequent.
Mr. LeBlanc, when you asked the
I didn't
question,
hear.
when you asked the question, some of your words faded out, so I didn't hear the complete question. Could you please repeat it?
I was just looking for a sewer ordinance update. It wasn't listed under F7, but maybe next meeting or the meeting after that or whenever. I know we can't really decide on it right now because it's not on the agenda, but just wanted to call it out because a decent amount of work was put into it, and I just don't want it to fall by the wayside.
Thank you. I think we have that planned. I thought it was supposed to be in January, but I think I forgot the reason why it was delayed, but we're waiting for a presentation of the recommendations for the ordinance changes. So we'll
actually they're with Mr. Marchant, and he's working with town staff, I believe, to draft the proposed provisions.
So when will that
I can give an update. I can give an update at the next meeting. I wouldn't be able to give an update now, even if it was on the agenda, because I've done nothing with it yet. We do have an RFP out for the sewer plan update, and that deadline was also extended to February 11th at the request of some of the interested firms.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I answer your question, Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Public comment from members of the council? Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mrs. Shockley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lima?
Yes.
Ms. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mrs. Dickson, yes. 5 yeas, no nays. The motion passes. We are adjourned. Have a good evening, and we'll see you back in February. Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.